Imagine ruling a kingdom where your own family wants you dead, where the church can excommunicate you, the barons can overthrow you, and a single bad harvest could spark a revolution. For over 1,000 years, one figure stood at the center of England's chaos, ambition, and glory, the monarch. And what follows is their entire story. From the first king who dared to call himself ruler of all England, to the crown that exists today. England was not always England. For centuries, the island we now call Britain was a patchwork of warring kingdoms: Mercia, Northumbria, Wessex, East Anglia, each ruled by its own king, each fighting for dominance. Viking raids hammered the coastlines, Saxon villages burned in the night, and out of that fire, one man decided enough was enough. His name was Aethelstan, and in 927 AD, he did something no one had ever done before. He unified the kingdoms. He called himself Rex Totius Britanniae, King of all Britain, and with that single declaration, the idea of England was born. Section 1. The Saxon Kings, 927 to 1066. Aethelstan was brilliant, a warrior and a statesman. He defeated the Vikings at the Battle of Brunanburh in 937, one of the bloodiest battles ever fought on British soil, and for a moment, England felt like a real kingdom. But unity was fragile. His successors stumbled. Edmund I was stabbed at a feast by an exiled thief he recognized in the crowd. Edwig was dragged from his own coronation banquet, allegedly found with a noblewoman. Edgar the Peaceful was the exception, a rare king who actually kept the peace, and his coronation in Bath in 973 set the template for every English coronation that followed, right down to the present day. Then came Ethelred, known to history as Ethelred the Unready, though that word unready didn't mean unprepared. It meant ill-advised, and he was. The Vikings came back, harder and more organized than ever, led by the Danish king Sweyn Forkbeard. Ethelred paid them off with silver, the famous Danegeld, but the Danes just kept coming back for more. England was collapsing, and then, in 1016, a Danish king sat on the English throne. Cnut. Here's the twist. Cnut was actually a remarkable ruler. He brought stability, enacted fair laws, and the famous story of him commanding the tide to stop. He did it to prove to his flattering courtiers that even a king had limits. He was making a point about humility. But when Cnut died, his sons were disasters. And by 1042, the English were desperate enough to invite a Saxon king back, Edward the Confessor, pious, gentle, and completely consumed by building Westminster Abbey rather than actually governing his kingdom. When Edward died childless in January 1066, he left England with the most dangerous thing a medieval kingdom could have: a disputed throne. 3 men claimed the crown of England in 1066. Harold Godwinson, the powerful English earl; Harold Hardrada of Norway, one of the most feared warriors alive; and William, Duke of Normandy, who said Edward had promised him the throne. What happened next would permanently change the English language, the English landscape, and the English soul. Harold defeated Harold at Stamford Bridge in Yorkshire. Then, exhausted, marched his army south. And on October 14, 1066, he met William at Hastings. An arrow, a falling king, a kingdom lost. William the Conqueror was ruthless and efficient. He built castles across England, visible symbols of power planted in the landscape like iron fists. He commissioned the Domesday Book, a total audit of England's land and wealth, something no European ruler had ever attempted. He replaced the English aristocracy with Normans. He replaced the English language in the courts and halls of power with French. England would never be the same. His son William Rufus was erratic and unpopular, killed by an arrow in the New Forest, possibly an assassination. His brother Henry I seized the throne the same day, allegedly while William's body was still warm. Henry was shrewd. He issued the Charter of Liberties, a promise to govern justly, and married a Scottish princess to unite the bloodlines. But when his son drowned in the White Ship disaster of 1120, he was left without an heir. He tried to pass the throne to his daughter Matilda. England wasn't ready for that. What followed was 19 years of civil war known as the Monarchy, a dark, brutal period where, in the words of one chronicler, Christ and his saints slept. It ended in compromise. Matilda's son would become king, and what a king he would be.
Henry II was one of the most gifted rulers England ever produced. He reformed the legal system, expanded the empire, and governed with relentless energy. But he could not control his temper. His old friend Thomas Becket, appointed Archbishop of Canterbury, began defying him at every turn.